So now we are in the display feed display details page or screen. This is where you can see the app. This is the screen that you see when you actually reading the news. So this is the display details. You can actually go from one tab to another. You can actually swipe the tabs. You can see what the endpoint gives to you. You can see the data you get from the API. You have the side drawer. So this is how all this now was designed in this class, the display detail class dot. So let me go up the class. Okay, so let me close all of this now so that you'll be able to see the classes involved here. Let me close all of these. It's actually made up of like 4 classes. I'm going to explain each of them so you see it. Okay, so here we have the display feed and it extends the stateful widget. The stateful widget actually overrides the create state, and it has another class, a display feed state, which actually extends the state and you pass in the display feed. And this actually has a build method, overrides the build method. It has a theme data. We have a primary color, and also we have a font family. So in the home property of the material app, we have a base. So the class base extends the stateful widget too. This all makes up as a stateful widget, and it actually overrides the create state. So you see the base override the create state, and we have another class, the base state, which actually extends the state. We pass in the base here, and then it with ticker provider state mixing. Okay, that will help us in the tab controllers. So inside the base state, we have a tab controller for the tabs, and if you check the app, you will see the tabs on the screen. You know, those tabs is the tab controllers that helps us to actually move and notify the tabs that okay, the screen is changing. So we do that using the tab controller. So we have the tab controller, we have the global key. The global key there helps the drawer to open and close, determine the state of the drawer when you see the global key. So the global key is for the drawer, call it the drawer key, and the tab controller helps the tab to notify the screen of its changes on the movement. So the global key takes in a scaffold state. You name it the global key. You see the drawer they opens. It's using the global key to determine the state of the drawer, if it is open or closed. So there we have the global key, and then we open the drawer. So this is a function here. This function just when you all it does is uses the drawer key. It checks the current state of the drawer. So it's being called when you tap on a button. If you go down, you see on top of a button here, on top of the button down here, this will be called the function. When you click on that, you see the open drawer. On top of it opens the drawer. So the drawer opens and it closes. So that is it inside the base state of class. So we call on the drawer key, current state, and open drawer. That is the drawer key we assigned there. We use it here. So it opens the drawer. So we have going down, we have list views, we have building. Actually, there are 1, 2, 3, 4 list views here. So these 4 list views actually contains the articles for the different screens. You see them on the 4 tabs. So we have 4 list view list items. These list items, 1 list for each screen. So this, you understand, that's how it works. You see, so we have 4 list items: 1 list model 2, list model 3, and we also have a list model 4. In the init state, all we have to do is initialize So we initialize the tab controller in the init state. The init state, this init state under is inside the base state. So this is the tab controller there. We initialize it. We initialize the tab controller, and it has a length of 4. You have to initialize your tab controller. So that is it. Then the news. So remember, this is the news class we created that contains the 5 API endpoints, and it has different functions. The get news that returns the list of articles. I explained about this class, so if you haven't watched it, go back to the previous video. And that's data1, data2, the list, http.get. You pass in the URL 1 and then the value. So the JSON.decode. When you decode the body, you directly return to JSON. So that is it, the status, and we got the list of articles. So data, map, articles, all of that, we return it to a list, and that's how we got the articles. So I explained this in the video before this. You can go back and watch it. So when we call on the news class, actually there are 1, news 2 for this. I'm gonna arrange it better for you. So I'm gonna just copy them and paste. I'm going to arrange it. So we have the news. So we have the news. I created 4 news objects. You see, news 1, news 2, news 3, news 4 for the 4 different tabs. News 4 for the 4 different tabs. So news that gets news, and so when you from the first news object we get the news. So once you call the news.getNews, it actually returns a list of articles, you see, as the future value. So because since it returns a future, we have to wait for a while, then it will return the value. Then we add each value into the list model. This returns a list of articles. So going back there, once we call on the get news, the value here will be a list of article. So we're actually going to loop through that list, and for each article we are going to add it to our own list view, the list model. We're adding it there, this list model you see up here. So we now set the state, and the same thing, news2.getNews2, that is for the second tab. It returns a list of articles, and we loop through every articles. We loop through it, and we add it to the second list, the list model 2. Then we call on the set state, So this is the news 3. We actually do the same thing. So news 3, we get, news 3 actually has to do with the URL 3. So each of the function news 2 is working with URL 2, and news 1 is working with URL 1. So different function works. Actually, I made it work with different URL endpoints. So that is it. So news 1, URL 1, and all of these, they work with different endpoints. So going down, news 2, and that the first one is news 1, the second one is news 2, and news 3, get news 3 works with URL 3, and get news 4 works with URL 4. So we loop through each of their results and we add it to the list. So that is how we got this. I think it's not that complicated though. So now I want to explain the build. You have to explain the build so that you see how you see how I display the list on the UI. So I'm going to explain it for you to see. So without make use of the tabs, you see. So make sure you go to the next video. This video is long enough. We're stopping here. So in the next video, I will explain the build method. You're gonna see how we display the list result on the UI for the user to see. So subscribe. Thank you.